Well, men's semi-final day, and at the time of recording this Spotlight segment, we have already seen one semi-finalist through to the Australian Open Championship decider. It is Alex Zverev for the first time. I'm joined today by Simon Ray from Gig. Welcome back, Razor.
Hey, John. Thanks for having me back.
And Candy Reid from the commentary team. How's it been for you, Candy?
Well, it's been great, but I want a nickname. If Simon's got a nickname, I need to have a nickname.
Razor.
That's fair.
What about Candy? You can do so much.
Don't go with sweet.
Willy Wonka Factory. I'll come back to you. End of episode.
Okay, perfect.
Right. Now, today we saw what looked like it was going to turn into one of the great epic men's semi-finals. A first set that went for some 80 minutes and ended in very quick circumstances when Novak Djokovic first made an unforced error into the net on the volley. And no sooner had he done so than Alex Zverev wins the tiebreaker and Novak Djokovic pulls the pin. So 7-6 was all we saw.
I think this is it. This is it. It's over. Can you believe it?
I think you were halfway down into the commentary booth and you didn't even realise what was happening.
So Peter Mercato and I were just coming down the stairs. We'd watched this unbelievable first set, so competitive. Almost an hour and a half for one set of tennis. It'd gone all the way to the tiebreak, so we're making our way down. We literally missed 2 points, and by the time we got to the commentary booth to see Steve Pearce and Kate Kearns, the match was over. It was shock, and you could see by Alex Zverev's reaction when he was sitting down, he was in shock, and he just got going. Yeah. What a shame, I think, for everybody in the crowd, for Novak, for Sascha. Of course, Sascha is so happy to be in the final, having played just one set. Because he's going to feel relatively fresh. But no one wanted it to end like that.
Well, even though it was just one set, there's so much to unpack. It was a great battle. I mean, was it the third service game alone where Sascha had at least 5 break points to break the Djokovic serve and didn't convert?
Yeah, it was looking like an all-time classic from the perspective of, the tug of war, the arm wrestle between these two men. I have to say, Novak didn't look right to me in terms of the electric movement, and I know he's older, but the electric movement that he's been known for, it wasn't really there. And I thought we saw him at end range, so as he's being pushed wide in the court, having to take one hand off the racket a lot on backhand side, just didn't look explosive, electric, dynamic, as explosive, dynamic and electric as we've become accustomed to year on year down here from a movement perspective. And as the first set played out, I thought throughout the first set breaker, I thought it was becoming more apparent that it was really a little bit more of a shell of Novak Djokovic, or a shadow of the best version of Novak Djokovic that we've come to expect over such a long time here at Melbourne Park.
I think it was just so nip and tuck, because Zverev is someone we've all watched a lot. He's now the legitimate world number 2 once again, been to a couple of major finals. And Zverev doesn't miss. He's got a backhand that's as good as Novak, and maybe Simon will disagree with me on that one, I'm not sure. But let's just say those two have the best backhands in the men's game and maybe have ever seen. They're unbelievable. So it was always going to be one of those kind of brutal fights that Zverev doesn't hit a huge amount of winners, but also doesn't hit that many unforced errors. What was Novak's level going to be? Maybe he just shot his bolt a little bit in that remarkable quarterfinal win over Carlos Alcaraz. Of course, now Novak, the world number 7, so they met earlier than they perhaps should have, and he was desperate to win that match. And we've been speaking in commentary about how over a 2-week major title, it's so much of a gas petrol tank, isn't it? Where it's worn down and you can reset and revitalise a little bit, but within reason. And I think Simon's right, being 37 years of age, and we still think of him as this immense athlete who just lives his life the perfect way of an ultra-professional tennis player. And I think the greatest of all time in not just tennis, but all of sports. I really believe that. Wow. He is just an absolute legend, but I just think he was wearing out a lot, and the thought of playing Alexander Zverev in 2, 3, 4 more sets, just like that one, was just too much to think about.
So what insights could we glean then from the minimal data that we have from the first set? Where was this match heading?
Well, you mentioned the struggles that Novak was having in terms of first serves landing in the court. I think he was down at 54% of first serves in play throughout that opening set. But really, once the points did become extended, and we saw a lot of them, it was trouble for Novak. So we know with our naked eye what we thought we saw in terms of the movement not being as explosive. But when the rallies got extended to 5+ shots, it was 26 for Zverev and 16 for Novak. So he put a margin of 10 on him in those lengthy exchanges. When it was short, Novak's right there. So serve and return, 26-23 Novak's favour.
Whether I'm going to have a revised schedule or not for the next year, I'm not sure. I normally like to come to Australia and play, and I've had the biggest success in my career here. So if I'm fit, healthy, motivated, I don't see a reason why I wouldn't come, but there's always a chance. Yeah. If I won the first set, I mean, maybe I would try, I don't know, a few more games, half a set, maybe a set, I don't know. But it was getting worse and worse. So I knew even if I won the first set, it is going to be a huge uphill battle for me, to stay physically fit enough to stay with him in the rallies, for another, God knows what, 2, 3, 4 hours. I don't think I had that, unfortunately, today in the tank.
Candy, I was most surprised because of what we'd seen Novak push through in previous years when he went to the 2021 title, went to the 2023 title. He had injuries that were similarly concerning, if not more. And so I think that's what left a lot of people shocked when he left the court so quickly. Do you think if he'd made that volley at the net and won the set, he would have pushed on?
Yes. Unbelievably, he absolutely would have. I think it was just the fact that he'd lost that really exhausting set and he just thought, now I've got to do 3 more and I'm not feeling well, my leg's hurting. But as you said, a couple of years ago, he won this title with a 3-centimetre tear in his hamstring, which to my mind is absolutely bonkers. I wouldn't even walk on court. Yeah. But he is superhuman. And then the year before that was the abs, wasn't it? And he won there. Yep. So you just think a little bit like Nadal, you can never, ever count him out, regardless. He could be walking on one leg with a stick and, have his eyes closed and he'd still find a way. So I think that was what was so shocking, especially to Zverev, who was really going in now for a second set. He'd just got 1 set. He'd got 2 more to get. And then Novak retires. So Novak obviously is very, very in tune with his body and just felt, I can't do this, it's not worth it. But I like the fact, also impressed that he was talking about the fact he'd entered Doha in a few weeks' time and was hoping to make it, and we'll see about the injury. So that does bode really well that Novak's going to continue and he's not going to retire.
I think just finally, the other thing that I would throw into the mix is, we know what our eye was seeing out there on the court, and we know what some of the numbers were seeing about short, medium, and long, and Candy's mentioned her observations from the opening set. But given some of what we're able to do now through the tracking that the team are capturing, in terms of Novak's what we call skeletal data, okay, so having a look at actually what his body is doing, the cameras that surrounded Rod Laver Arena today are giving us these types of insights, together with some of the clever minds that I'm lucky enough to work with. And his leg drive, so out of his serve, where he's clearly in complete control of that, so Zverev's got no say over that whatsoever. His leg drive number, so we measure this at the hip in terms of his velocity to drive up to the ball, was down on his average. So that was a bit of an indication for me. Now we've spoken about the eye test and then the numbers, but if we get into the skeletal data, there are some clues in here that says, okay, it was a compromised version of Novak today. He was struggling to drive up to the peak of impact on serve with the normal speed that we associate with him coming out of that position of maximal leg drive on his serve, and perhaps that played a role in some of the struggles that he had on first serve execution throughout that opening set.
Absolutely, great insights. So looking ahead then, Alex Zverev into a 3rd major final. We've seen him go there at the US Open 2020, Roland Garros 2024. At the time of recording, we don't know his opponent, but let's just assume that he's going to be playing someone as good as the world number 1. How does this play out for Zverev? What can he be doing? And Simon, you might be able to give some data insights as well to be acquitting himself on the court in a position to win his first major.
Zverev's got to keep with his own game plan. He's not going to become chip and charge, a volleyer particularly, although he has very much added, I think, that part to his game. He's no longer just the baseline guy, although certainly that's where he feels comfortable. I think these courts are favouring him because they're a bit gritty, a little bit slower. That's what we're hearing from the players. He's really worked on his second serve. So that's no longer a liability as it was. I think he's got scar tissue, particularly from the 2020 US Open final, which he lost to Dominic Thiem. He really wants a major title. The amount that guy works off the court. I was at the NTC a couple of days ago and he was there stretching and working out with his fitness coach, Jez Green, who's back in the camp after departing ways. And so I think that's really good. He's got a really solid crew around him. He's got a hitter. His father is here as coach. His brother, Misha, is also here with him to support him. So he's got all that in place. He seems settled, doesn't he, off the court with his girlfriend, Sophia. I think they've been together for over a couple of years now and she's always around. So I think off the court, he's very very settled. On the court, he really believes. He's put so much work into it. I can't underestimate that, as they all have. But I think Alex Zverev has gone above and beyond in that he'll win a match or lose a match, and then he'll be back out on court that same day working on particular shots. So if anyone deserves one, probably him. However, I do think if he comes up against Jannik Sinner's got that X factor, that little 1%, and I suspect that Sinner will win again.
Where are the numbers trending well for Zverev this tournament?
Well, I think I'd keep that pretty simple. Not many have a winning record against the number one player in the game at the moment.
And he does.
And Alex Zverev has won. So it's 4-2 in his favour in terms of the head-to-head. And we know the weapons that he's got at his disposal. Candy's given great background into the type of pre-season that he's had with Jez Green back in the camp, so he'll be prepared. And we've seen him. Candy's right. We've seen him post-match back out onto the practice court on more than one occasion throughout the event. So continuing to build with the aim to peak on the final Sunday. So he's going to give himself every opportunity. I'm with Candy, though. I still feel like the head-to-head may be in Zverev's favour, but I feel like Sinner, if it is Sinner, has got the ability to elevate again. But I think it's a potential tantalising matchup that awaits us because of the head-to-head being the way it is. And when these two have played, any time they've clashed, this has normally been an absolute arm wrestle between these two. No reason to think it won't be the case again.
Let's hear from Sascha Zverev following today's result against Novak Djokovic.
I'm obviously happy to have another shot at winning Grand Slam. Was it the way I wanted it to end? No, of course not. But it's how it is sometimes in sports. I've been in his situation, at the French Open with probably a worse injury. It's life, it's sports, life goes on.
Well, day 14 is the women's final, and today we're going to be looking at Madison Keys and Aryna Sabalenka in a diagnostic fashion. We're going to be considering the reasons for both, why each could win this title, and perhaps the reasons why each could lose this title. So Simon has put together a little bit on each. Simon, we're going to start with the case for Madison Keys. What are the things working in Keys' favour?
Well, I think I piggyback off the back of the momentum that she generates in her, what was nothing short of a remarkable performance in overcoming Iga Swiatek last night on Rod Laver Arena. I think that was one of the better semi-finals, certainly that I've seen, and in talking to a lot of people today, it was something to behold, that contest between those two women. And that's my first point, is I feel like she's got this new sense of perspective, momentum, just this sense that this is maybe her time. And it's taken her a little longer than some of us thought, and she's trodden her own path to get there. But I think in recent memory as well, she's been able to trouble Sabalenka. She doesn't necessarily have the edge from a head-to-head perspective, but we know about some of the weapons, so I'll get there in a second. There was a 6-love set at the 2023 US Open between these two women that went in Madison Keys' favour. She ended up losing the next 2 sets in tiebreakers, but I went back and had a look at the data from that match. Every time Aryna Sabalenka served to the backhand side of Madison Keys, whether it was a first serve or a second serve in that opening set, it got punished. And that's an example of what Madison Keys can do to you. She can take the racket out of your hand with the weapons that she's got at her disposal. As well as that, Aryna Sabalenka is really aware of what type of challenge is down the other end tomorrow night in terms of what Madison Keys possesses. And the proof was in the pudding here when I went back and had a look at this match, because Aryna Sabalenka actually backed up in her return position. She doesn't do that, Sabalenka. Not on first and second serve. And against Keys, she's back sometimes a metre, metre and a half, sometimes 2 metres further back in the court than what you'd expect. So she's aware of the threat that Keys poses in that regard. So there's a couple of things. And I think on forehand side, not many players can generate more heat than Aryna Sabalenka. Madison Keys is one. And we saw at times last night in some huge moments, her hitting forehand winners down the line almost at will, Madison Keys. So she's got more heat, which is quite something to say. She's got more heat and more firepower on forehand side than Aryna Sabalenka does. She can maybe make more errors on forehand side, but we'll get to that in a second. I think those are some of the things, those are some of the reasons why she can be a real threat to Aryna Sabalenka tomorrow night.
I think Madison Keys has got as good a chance as anybody. I think this is a 50-50. I actually commentated the whole Adelaide International for the WTA right before the Australian Open. And Jessie Pegula, I've said this a few times, after the match said she'd never played anyone that hit the ball harder than Madison Keys.
With a new racket.
With a new racket and the new strings, and she's got a new service technique to take the pressure off the shoulder, which hampered her a lot last year. Madison Keys has spoken a lot about being Madison Keys Part 2. So this is almost the 30-year-old version of Madison Keys. I think her husband now, Bjorn Fratangelo, has done a phenomenal job. he would get Coach of the Year, in my opinion, already for 2025.
4 weeks, 3
she's
weeks.
gone early.
Absolutely. It's only a month in, and he's already got it as far as I'm concerned, because he's giving her concise, just easy, structured tactics to go along with. He is, in the last 18 months, and I saw her at Eastbourne, the first tournament they got together in 23, having a lot more creative game. So he's urging her to get to the net. He's urging her to throw into drop shots, use the backhand slice, which I thought she did very well against Iga, particularly going into Iga's forehand where she's got that more extreme grip. So she can change the pace. Now, obviously, when you play a Sabalenka, it's a little bit harder. But I think that Madison Keys, again, talking of scar tissue that Zverev has, she has a little bit as well. 2017 US Open didn't perform at all well against her good friend Sloane Stephens. But we're now 7-8 years on, and Madison Keys has grown up. Over half the year, she's been a professional tennis player. She's been touted as a major champion since she was 14. And I think the pressure of expectation did get to her. There's no doubt about that. But she's free. She says she's going for her shot. She wants to finish matches now, going for it. If she's made a mistake, then so be it. And you saw that in the final set tiebreaker against Iga. I said in commentary that fortune is going to favour the brave here, even though Keys was down the entire match tiebreak until the very last part. She was the one being brave, and Iga was playing conservatively. And I think for that reason, Keys has got maybe, it's 50-50 with Sabalenka. Okay. It just depends who hits a few more unforced errors.
So, Razor, where are the chinks in the Americans' armour?
Well, reluctantly, it looked like deep in that match last night, there was potential physical question marks. We've seen the hamstring, looks like high hamstring, be taped up across the fortnight so far. She's spent 2 hours more on court so far in getting to the final than Aryna Sabalenka. She's sprinted, in our definition of a sprint, she's sprinted nearly double the amount that we've seen from Aryna Sabalenka. She's covered 2,500 more metres to get there. So the body, the physical toll, the body's paid a bit of a price to get there. Now, she's got to bury all of that because there's a Grand Slam title on the line tomorrow
Fresh slate, yeah.
But that's the reality, is she's had to pay more of a price to get there. If you don't strike, any player, but particularly Madison, if you don't strike the right balance against Aryna Sabalenka, you're in trouble. And this is where I feel like it could go pear-shaped for her. Court position's key for Madison Keys tomorrow. She's going to unleash on the ball at times. But if you're trying to unleash against Sabalenka from beyond the baseline, so if Aryna's able to back you up, and then Madison feels like, well, I've got to get out of here, and I'm going to explode on the ball right now, but I'm going to try and do that from 3 and 4 metres behind the baseline, that's when you'll see the error count start to climb. That's trouble for Madison Keys. If you're seeing her pull trigger, change direction from what I would call as a reckless or a defensive court position, trouble. And that potentially leaves you in a spot where you have to hurt her, but then you're trying to walk or tread this really fine line. I'm being backed up in the court. I know I need to play aggressive because I've got to expose Aryna's movement. I can't turn this into a physical, long, elongated contest. I need to make her feel my ball striking. But I'm trying to do that from tricky positions. That's trouble. And first serve percentage, I think, is huge for Madison Keys tomorrow night. If she has a poor first serve percentage in play number in the opening set, I'm worried if I'm in her camp. Because, and I know it's been a conscious change to go to the kick serve on the second serve, her speed on second serve is way down. Okay, and that's challenging players because whilst the speed is down, the bounce is up. And Madison Keys is a tall player. So the trajectory of that serve with her height and then with the kick serve, it's elevating on players. But I don't think that'll challenge Sabalenka. With her height, with her strength, I think she'll be all over that second serve, looking to climb into it and unleash. So if Madison Keys has a poor first set tomorrow night, from a first serve in play perspective, I'm worried she's going to be chasing the point thereafter.
Plenty to look out for. All right, Candy, let's switch and talk about Aryna Sabalenka. The positives for her. What are we looking for that's going to give us the best indication that she's going on to an historic three-peat?
Well, I think she's a twice Australian Open champion, hasn't lost here in many years. She's only lost a set or two, doesn't she? She was phenomenal against Paula Badosa despite going 2-love down. Yep. She's an absolute warrior. She believes in herself. She's added so much to her game, including that incredible drop shot, which I just love. Yep. Her second serve return is unbelievable if you serve T. If you serve T from both sides, you are in big trouble. So Madison Keys has to swing the second serve out wide, which isn't actually that comfortable from the deuce side. Yeah. And then she can go with the kicker. But when I was watching Clara Towson, every time Clausen went at second serve T from both sides, the ball came back down the line. a la Yelena Ostapenko, and you just can't get to that next shot. If you do, you're just popping it up.
Yep.
I love the way she plays. I like the way she's coming forward, taking the balls out of the air. That was something I thought the Keys could have done a bit better against Sabalenka. Against Iga. When a ball popped up, she was waiting for it. Sabalenka doesn't do that anymore.
Pounces.
She's always looking forward to taking the ball on. So I think the belief, if you had to guess who was going to win tomorrow, I don't think anyone would put their money on Keys just because Sabalenka's done it twice before.
What else is working in her favour?
Well, I thought it was her most dominant performance of the event so far last night against Paula Badosa. Some of the numbers were frightening in terms of generating momentum coming into a Grand Slam final tomorrow. So 77% of first serve points won, 61% of second serve points won, and her forehand ball speed elevated. So when she needed it the most, all of a sudden she's up in the mid-120s in terms of her ball speed on forehand side. Now, that's a number we hadn't really seen from her, not only this year, but even in 22 and 23. 23 and 24.
Yeah.
Those are not numbers that we'd seen from her. So her quality of shot off forehand wing elevated last night. That's ominous, I think, if you're on the receiving end of that. First serve returns in play. We can expect her tomorrow night to make 75% of forehand returns on her first serve return and 78% of backhand. Both of those numbers are 10 to 15% higher than what we'd expect from Madison. Aryna Sabalenka is going to make more first serve returns against the threat that Keys poses on return. And sprints per match, I've already mentioned kind of the matchup physically. Well, Aryna, you can only force Aryna at the moment to sprint 11 times per match. We said Keys was up around 25. That's what we're expecting. So Aryna's saying, hey, I'm in charge of the point here. No one's bullying me around here. And the challenge remains for Madison Keys to try to do that. And she does have that ability. But those are some of the reasons why Aryna Sabalenka is going and feeling good about things.
Okay, so if you're a fan of Madison Keys then and you're worried about all this potential data that Simon's given us, what are the signs you're looking for that Aryna is potentially a little bit off her game? What are the things that we can find as vulnerabilities in the Sabalenka game?
Well, I suppose the unforced error count can go off.
Yep.
And as Simon said, you've got to really get her out of the strike zone. You've got to get her on the run. If anyone can do that, Madison Keys can, because she, as Simon has said, she can match her for power, and very few people could do that. I think if Iga had got to the final, it would have been Sabalenka for sure winning, because Iga just cannot cope with that kind of pace. So Madison Keys can hit the ball as big. She's got to serve well. That is so imperative. And, of course, the belief. Now, we've seen Keys lose a few first sets.
Yes.
So that could be trouble. So Sabalenka will be eyeing that up and knowing that perhaps it's hard to put Keys to bed.
Yeah.
But I suspect that if Sabalenka gets on a roll like she did against Badosa from 2-love down, she's going to be hard to stop just because she's done it before. She thoroughly believes in herself, and she's just got such a huge game.
What else?
Well, I think in terms of Madison Keys and her ability to challenge Aryna Sabalenka, so where things might be looking a little bit off if you're in the Sabalenka camp, I think Aryna Sabalenka can be challenged by Madison Keys, exactly as Candy said, from a ball speed, from a weapons perspective. Yeah. So the players that have played against Aryna Sabalenka so far in the 2025 Australian Open, on forehand side, they've averaged 109, 116, 117, 118, 108 kilometres an hour. What do we expect from Madison Keys tomorrow night? 130.
Oh, okay. Next
level. That's a different ball game all of a sudden. So Aryna's not going to find that baseline exchange as easy to dominate, or in fact, easy at all to dominate. Madison Keys is a whole different threat with her ball striking capability. And there's a little bit of a template in terms of what Pavlyuchenkova did the other night. And easier said than done. But her purpose, her intent, her aggression on second serve return, anytime she got a look at the Aryna Sabalenka second serve, was to get after that thing. I think Madison Keys, she has the ability, if she runs hot, she can get rolling, she can generate momentum, and look out, because she can generate winners at will, Madison Keys.
All right. Well, you've set it up as a tantalising battle. Like, this is a dream matchup for a
really
women's final. So I'm going to... Final word to both of you. How is this? I want a winner and a scoreline. Candy.
All right, I'm going to have to go with Sabalenka, and I think she's going to win 5-3, and I think Maddie Keys is just going to run out of steam.
Okay, and Razor.
Gee, I'm tempted to say that. You know what? Yep, I'm gonna call it. I think Madison Keys can pull this upset off. I think this is a 3-set battle. It's going to take every ounce of grit and resilience and determination that she's got. But I think her weapons give her an opportunity anyway to pull this off. So I'm going to say she gets it done. 7-6 in the third, John.
Very good. Thank you, Razor. And Fantails is your new nickname.
Fantails.
Do you know them?
No.
It's an Australian confectionery, I believe.
Oh, great.
They have information about Hollywood films on the back, so Candy Reid.
Okay, Hollywood. That's what you're calling me.
Fantails.
Fantails.
Nicely
Yeah,
done.
I like it.
Sounds a
Thanks for
little
joining
bit
us,
strange,
Fantails.
but-
Razor,
Thanks, John. Thanks,
all the
Candy.
best. Have a
Good
great
fun.
women's final. We'll see you tomorrow for day 14.